So we've been practicing 1-5-1 progressions in all keys moving around the circle of fifths, like this. All right, and we discovered that chords whose roots are a fifth or a fourth apart from each other share a common tone, in this case G. So we keep that common tone in our right hand, move the other notes by step, and back again. Well, this is a basic tonic-dominant tonic progression, but we can add some chords to it to create a fuller progression, a predominant chord in between the tonic and the dominant. So one of the first and most important predominant chords we're going to talk about here is the 4 chord. So we're going to add 4 in between 1 and 5. So the progression is going to be 1, 4, 5, 1. So let's look at what that is. Starting on the 1 chord, I'm going to go to the 4 chord, which is a root motion of a fifth, which means there's going to be a common tone in the right hand. It's C. And the other 2 notes are then going to move up by step to the notes of the F major chord, C major to F major. Okay, next I'm going to go 4 to 5. This is a root motion of a step. And the simplest way of doing this is simply to move all the notes in your right hand up by step in parallel motion with the left hand. Now, this is certainly the simplest way of doing it, but it's not going to be the best way of doing it. And the reason is that it ends up with parallel fifths and octaves between the 2 hands. Now, in certain musical styles, this isn't a problem, but we're going to try and avoid those parallels. And it's pretty easy to do so once you learn this simple trick. So 1 to 4. Now, instead of moving everything in parallel from 4 to 5, what I'm going to do is take the notes in my right hand and move them down in contrary motion with the upwards motion of the left hand's bass note. And so that's going to avoid all the parallels. So I'm going to go from these F major notes to those G major notes, avoiding all the parallels by having the contrary motion between the hands. And then when I go from my G chord back to C, I keep the common tone and move everything else by step. Now the nice thing about doing the 4 to 5 progression with contrary motion is that when you resolve to 1, you end on the same root position right hand chord that you started with. So the progression looks like this. 1, 4, 5, 1. Now the other really important chord to talk about that could take the place of the 4 chord as a predominant is the 2 chord. So let's talk about the 1-2-5-1 progression. Starting on 1. Now we're going from 1 to 2. There's our stepwise root motion. Instead of the simplest thing to do, which would be move everything in parallel, let's try and get that contrary motion happening again. So the right hand is going to move down from C major to the notes of D minor, like that. So 2 of the notes go down by step and 1 has to leap in order to catch all of the notes of D minor. Now D minor to G is a fifth relationship, so there's going to be a common tone. It's D here, so D minor goes to that G major, and 5 going to 1 is simply like that. Again, by having the contrary motion from 1 to 2, it sets up arrival on the same C major inversion in the right hand that I started on. Now, of course, you can start your right hand C major chord on any inversion. I could start it on first inversion, which would result in a root position 2, second inversion 5. Again, it'll end on first inversion. So you can practice these with all the different chord inversions. So that's the 1-2-5-1 and the 1-4-5-1 progressions.